Hey, what's up everybody? Tarafdar back with a brand new video. Today we're going to talk about credit dispute blueprints and specifically the strategies that you need to follow if you're going to fix your credit and whether or not these blueprints are actually going to help you and whether or not they're actually effective. So stay tuned. Hey, what's up everybody? Tarafdar back with a brand new video. Today we're going to talk about the credit dispute blueprints, what are some of the strategies that you can use that are alternative to that, and why some of these strategies don't necessarily help you, especially when it comes to looking at the blueprint as a whole, and where I find that there are some issues with it. So let's start by looking and analyzing about the credit dispute blueprint and what it is, right? A credit dispute blueprint, in a sense, is essentially a tool that you use for getting outcomes based on your effort at the beginning of doing credit repair, and you're not getting the outcome in your first round. And on the second round, what are some of the things that you need to look out for? And what are some of the things that you can use as a tool to move you forward? So there's two things that we're going to talk about. First, what a credit dispute blueprint could potentially do for you if you use it the right way. And number two, why I believe it's not the best solution, because there are alternatives that are far more efficient than that and that actually get the results for you. So let's start off with our first point. What are credit dispute blueprints? Essentially what they are is a series of things that you can do based on your first round. So let's assume that you send out a dispute letter to the credit bureaus, you get the responses back from them, and essentially the credit bureaus are telling you, hey, we cannot fix this. We've already checked with the creditor and they've stated that it's verified, and therefore we're not willing to budge. You just have to deal with them directly. From that perspective, you see a lot of gurus out there, especially credit experts or so-called credit experts, have designed these things to sell to you, which are essentially credit dispute blueprints. They give you a strategy on, hey, do this instead and do that instead if you don't get the outcome. And obviously some of these things are very legit. They're very insightful and they give you the information that you need. But the issue there is you can have all the laws and systems in place, but at the end of the day, not know what to do with them and how to execute your next plan, because round two could essentially be you waiting another impatient 60 days or 90 days and getting the same response as saying, hey, this information has been verified from the creditor side. There's nothing that we're willing to do. So in those instances, what specifically do you do to make sure that you can actually move forward, right? So the credit dispute blueprint is actually very flawed for that two reasons, which is number one, you have to worry about your current circumstances. What specifically articulated a responsive verification from the credit bureau side? What did the creditor do? In fact, what kind of information did the creditor receive on their side to verify that this information is actually accurate? So that's the first thing you need to worry about. And the second thing you need to worry about is the timelines. When you're using a credit dispute blueprint, it essentially is telling you to follow a systematic protocol in reference to wait until your next round is back, because we're going to design this template and we're going to send it back based on the reasons as to why they didn't fix the issue in the first place. When you're doing these type of things, what's happening is you're putting yourself in a trap. And the reason I say that is because now you have to wait an extra couple of days. And due to that, and it's not just a couple of days, I'm talking like 30 days or even 60 days. And this can be very time consuming, right? And this can be very painful and frustrating if you're not doing what to do. So in that circumstance, the credit dispute blueprint, albeit that they have amazing level of information and detail for you in terms of what you need to do in your next round, or what are some of the alternative strategies you can use, there's always a question of inefficiencies in terms of timelines, as well as whether or not that dispute blueprint is specific to your circumstances, given that your attack strategy in the past may be unique to you. And perhaps you have multiple credit repair companies that have worked on your system, your credit reports, and using their protocols and systems, which in turn can intervene with one another. And essentially, you're not being able to see that because in the back end, the Oscar is basically regulating its own laws and rules and basically putting information out there with creditors that are coming back verified. So what do you do in those circumstances? So as we know, time is always against you, right? There's nothing that you can do about that. You have to follow protocol and you have to respect the fact that, hey, with these credit repair strategies and credit dispute blueprints, you have to follow a way to use this information and be patient with the time, because there's nothing you can do to speed up the time, or so we thought, right? The issue again, because time is against you, right? And perhaps you're trying to fix your credit because you have some sort of urgency that you want to try to tackle. And those urgencies are critical for you to look at and say, look, I don't have a lot of time. I really need to be hyper efficient when it comes to doing this the proper way. Now, a credit report, a credit dispute blueprint might give you some idea of like, hey, here's something that I can do. Here's some alternative strategy here. But at the end of the day, like, you still have to worry about the time, right? So what is it that we can do and what's our alternative? So in this video, I want to also continue by discussing alternatives that you can potentially use, which will definitely help you if you know what you're doing. The first thing I'd like to start off with, there are multiple alternatives, but the best one I believe that I've seen results with, especially from my customers, is when they use the ultimate strategy that I designed, which is the PI minimizer technique, the item anchoring, and then the 15-day power surge. And then there's also the MVP method, which is a bonus method that I always talked about. But the reason why these work so much better than, let's say, the credit dispute blueprint is because you're relying on a set of laws that the credit reporting agencies have been ignoring for more than a decade, right? A lot of people put all these type of templates, all these type of regulations and laws, all this legal verbiage in their letters, and they're still getting the same outcome. The item has come back verified, right? Or the creditor has stated that this information is accurate. So in those situations, what do you do? So you cannot rely on traditional means to get you resolved, because at the end of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to fall into a system that's not designed to help you, but rather help the people who are making the profit for the government, paying the taxes. The court system in its entirety, we know how it is. That's not justice, right? But end result is you have to make sure that you put a lot of pressure in the right areas to get the result that you're looking for. So the traditional, dispute reason blueprints and all these type of things is not going to help you get a speedy resolution. In fact, you have to look at the alternative. And this is why the PI minimizer technique should be your first protocol. The reason why I say that is because you're designing a framework for yourself which allows you to tackle personal details about your credit reports, which in turn put the entire infrastructure of the report in jeopardy or question, right? If you tackle it in that concept, what happens now is you can actually ask them if they were unwilling to budge or remove any information that's in relations to personal detail as to where the source of that detail comes from, and how it was authorized to be accurate, and how it was gathered in the first place, and whether they had the right protocols when gathering so there are a set of rules and regulations when you're asking for those type of information. And of course, when you're reporting on the credit reporting agency, right, they have their own agreement with the creditors. So when you're tackling in that perspective, what you're doing is you're tackling on a personal identification perspective. This leads a lot of information to be leaked or potentially inaccurate or misleading, and therefore the credit reporting agencies have no chance or way other than to ensure that they verify this information the proper way. They have to follow a specific type of protocol when it comes to identity. So personal identifiers are a critical part of the efforts to ensure that you are efficiently fixing your credit reports. So that's the first rule that I really want you to pay attention to. The second rule we're going to talk about is the item anchoring. There are a lot of people getting results, and a lot of people are saying, Ali, it's not coming back properly. And there's two reasons why this happens, right? The first thing you need to understand when it comes to item anchoring. Now, obviously, credit dispute blueprints, we talked about, hey, if this doesn't work, then you do this, right? So it's like a 1-2 punch strategy. But instead of thinking about that, let's assume that the item does come back verified, and there was a successful campaign where you removed a lot of personal details which are irrelevant to you. And let's say this item is not willing to budge. What you need to ask to the credit reporting agency, if you're not getting the results, is a very simple process. It's, hey, look, this information that you're unwilling to move, I need to understand exactly who it's affiliated with. What specific name is it affiliated with based on my credit reports? And when you do that, what happens is you're challenging the integrity and the infrastructure of the report. Chances are they're not going to be able to verify that because they have themselves removed a list of personal names and, of course, addresses and so on and so forth, which was misleading in the first place because it doesn't accurately describe your current situation, right? So when you're doing these type of situations and going through that protocol, you're going to get a higher level of outcome. And the reason why, it's because you're actually taking your time to ask the right questions. You're putting the right type of pressures to the credit reporting agency in return, hopefully to get the outcome that you're looking for. And this will actually help you get the results, because following this protocol gives you some sort of designated way into fixing your credit that doesn't rely on systematic protocol and time inefficiencies. Rather, you have control over the situation. You can actually call the credit reporting agency and say, look, there's a lot of names and personal detail I don't recognize. Once you remove them, can you please send me, or it's not accurate, and once you remove them, send me a copy so that I can look into it. And definitely from that perspective, you can challenge right away your negative items, right? Because it doesn't mean that you have to wait the 30-45 day rule. Now, be it that you can actually do the 30 to 45 day rule protocol, obviously send certified mail and so on and so forth to protect yourself, to show a demonstrated paper trail in an effort to rectify and fix the accuracy in your credit reports. And of course, from that perspective, there's just so much more that you're armed with and equipped with, rather than rely on systematic inefficiencies, including writing thousands of pages of bylaws and of these legal verbiages, which in turn the credit reporting agency have been habitually ignoring for a better part of the decade, or over 2 decades, right? So instead, you have to follow a protocol that helps your situation, and you're asking all the right questions to put the right pressure. And then from that angle, there's a lot more success that you'll achieve. So I want you to think about that in terms of credit repair and credit dispute blueprints. Why I don't think they're as efficient. Of course, they give you a lot of details in reference to what you can learn about the inefficiency in your credit report, but it doesn't necessarily help your cause because you don't have the time of day to wait around for the credit reporting agencies to ignore the laws all over again. In fact, you have to take it in your own hands to ensure the accuracy of your report and to make sure that you're protected and that your information is not being misleadingly provided out there to the creditors who are potentially looking to fund you. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some value from this. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, you've been watching me for a while, consider subscribing and turn the bell icon on. So every time there's new videos like these, you'll be first to be notified. Don't forget to turn the bell icon on to all instead of personalized, as you'll get a lot more notifications that way. And of course, once my live streams are up, you'll be notified as well, and I'd definitely like to see you there. So with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafdar. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.